I intentionally stopped writing percussion music. I was writing a lot of percussion music.
Yeah, sure.
I was writing during undergrad. I had percussion in everything. I mean, my friends were all percussionists. I was writing pieces for them. My whole senior year, my roommate, both of my roommates were percussionists. One of them was Andy Akio, and one
Yeah.
of them is a drum set player named Ron Wiltrout. And we had a little townhouse together. We rented together. They both played in pieces of mine, and so I was kind of going down that path actually. Um, and what I realized was that I was kind of cornering myself. My curiosity for creating new things wasn't being fulfilled because I was doing a lot of the same stuff, things that I was already good at, really. I was like, oh, I understand all the percussion instruments. Why keep writing for them?
Yeah.
Right? Instead of like sort of capitalizing on it or
Right.
something, I made the decision one day that I'm not going to write percussion music anymore. I'm going to write music for strings. I'm going to write music for French horn. I have several French horn pieces. French horn was my instrument for a little while, which I can tell you about. I was going to write music for oboe, and I was going to find things that I didn't know anything about. I was going to write some more art songs, and I was going to write for that stuff. So I didn't write for percussion for years. For From 2002 until 2006, I have no percussion music. No, actually, 2003. I did write one piece in 2003. And 2003 to 2006, I have no percussion music. And that's totally intentional. I stepped away from that world as a composer. Not as I was still a percussionist though, right? But as a composer, I stepped away from that world for 4 years, um, because also I knew as a percussionist, confronted with all the literature that was being developed, like in that field, and having guest percussion composers come through, at my university and stuff like that. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to be that, but I also felt like composing for percussion as a percussionist, my creativity was limited to what I was good at doing as a percussionist. And I didn't like that. And I actually recognized that. Like I'm kind of writing all this music for me as a performer, right? For me to play, even though I'm not always the one playing it. I kind of didn't like that. I felt like I'm not imagining all these other things that other people can do or want to do. And so I stopped doing it. The next time I wrote a percussion piece, it was a piece for solo cello with percussion ensemble. That was the next time I wrote it. And it was nothing like any of the percussion music I'd written prior. Of course, I'd learned a lot in those 4 years about other things and had found a way to be more creative. Yeah.
Is this something that you now encourage your students, like an exercise you encourage from your students who I'm sure often play an instrument and often compose for the instrument that they
Mm-hmm.
perform on? Do you push them to kind of quit altogether for a while?
No, maybe graduates, maybe like master's students.
Yeah.
If we have a new master student and I look at their list of works and I know that they're a euphonist, God forbid,
Yeah.
and all their music is like tuba euphonium music,
Yeah.
then yes, the answer is yes. I tell them, you know, let's write for an instrumental configuration that you've never written for before. Let's learn about the instrumentation of something that you've never been confronted with. You're really great at writing for tuba and euphonium, as good as one could be for those.
Yeah.
I'm picking on you because I know that you played euphonium, but
Yeah.
if so, like my student who's a triangle virtuoso, for example, I won't have them writing all triangle music. I'll
Right.
tell them, in fact, not to write any triangle music. They're already good at that. But that's a pedagogical thing. I mean, they don't need me to help them with things that they probably know more about than I do.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
my euphonium composer students know more about the euphonium than I do. And what am I going to do to help them? I mean, there's all the other aspects of composing, but I'm really interested in students being outside their comfort zone because that's where I put myself. So I guess what I would say then is it's not that I tell them not to compose for their instruments the way that I told myself, but it's that I tell them to step outside of their comfort zone and do something different. That could include doing something different with the instruments that they are already composing for.
Yeah.
Because you have to get into process and technique and all the different compositional approaches that one may or may not encounter. I want students to encounter those things.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Micromaker by Loose Leaf Transmissions. We hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into the inner workings of the creative life. If this resonated with you, be sure to check out the full conversation on Music Maker with Tyler Kline, a podcast exploring craft and process, philosophy and inspiration, and the honest, often messy parts of being an artist, creative uncertainty, purpose and identity, and resilience. You can find Music Maker wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting musicmakerpodcast.com.